everybody. Welcome to Bledsoe Said So. I want to talk about the Tibetan Book of the Dead tonight. And honestly, it was just going to be a general episode about the afterlife and purgatory and my thoughts and beliefs on what happens next. And as I started getting deeper into this, I realized there was so much intrigue with the Tibetan Book of the Dead that I decided I wanted to narrow my focus on this. And maybe we could even expand more in later episodes about other systems of death and the afterlife, like maybe the Egyptian Book of the Dead or the Book of Coming Forth by Day. Also, maybe we could look into like the Catholic model of death and purgatory and things like the Divine Comedy, or popularly known as Dante's Inferno, because I think that's a very interesting story. And we find in that, in my view, that there's a relation between specifically the Divine Comedy and the description of navigating the circles of hell and what it's like being in the layers of Bardo, according to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. So as I got to digging into this topic, I thought it would be one episode, and I realized it could be many episodes talking about death and the transition of that passage into the afterlife. So I was like, oh, let's just start here and see where it goes. And I also found I've actually been putting this off for a few months. Alex had an idea 2 or 3, maybe even 3 months ago, that was like, we should do an episode on purgatory. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. It's a great idea, but I just don't know how it fits right now. So I kept pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back. And I think, Alex, you wanted me to more or less at least acknowledge that we've been on a generational run since October, I believe, where I haven't explicitly said this out loud on the show, but every topic we've done in the last however many months it's been since October, I've very intentionally been pulling a thread, going between these topics with a lot of thoughtful consideration. They've not been random like oftentimes in the past when we're like, what do we talk about this week? I don't know, Star Wars. You know what I mean? It's not been random, and it's actually been a very intentional thread of things that I've wanted to discuss that I believe lead from one thing into the next. And that's why I kept pushing the purgatory was how it was first presented. So I kept pushing that back for months, maybe since November. I was like, I'm just not ready for that. And then a few weeks ago, I said, wait a minute, but we could expand that conversation. It could be about the afterlife more generally, and that includes purgatory. So I was thinking, so I'll just focus on the afterlife. And then as I started investigating, for the first time ever, mind you, I've never read the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Once I read it today and then started diving it more into it, I realized this is a profound, it's every bit as profound as they say, but it's another thing entirely when you read it firsthand, as always, of course. And I realized, wow, this is perfectly on the thread. It's not an afterlife or a purgatory episode, but it's deeper than that. So I guess I'll just get into it. But before we start the topic, I have a few things that I need to mention, starting off with my friend Melissa Kane from Wisconsin. I'm not sure what city she lives in, but she is hosting in Delavan, Wisconsin, the Contact Modalities XPO. This year's theme is going to be Harmonic Ascension 2026. There's going to be 30 to 40 presenters at the very same location as last time. So folks who have been there and are in the know, you already know that it's this incredible, beautiful cabin resort on Lake Lawn. Is that right? That sounds right. Lake Lawn Lake, something like that. There's freaking hundreds of lakes in Wisconsin, and they're huge and they're amazing. But the conference is amazing. There's going to be multiple sky watches, 4 to be exact, 3 of which can be accessed through purchasing a ticket. And then the 4th one, we're going to be doing a giveaway, and this is a private VIP sky watch where the 40 exclusive participants will be bussed off location to a secret area to do a more intimate Skywatch experience. So there's going to be up to 4 Skywatches, with the first 3 being general public. and they handle tiers of tickets. So pay very careful attention if you want to do the Skywatch with my dad and with Alex and with my siblings. Look at the ticket tiers and make sure that that benefit is on there. There's going to be some other amazing presenters in addition to my dad. Alex will be there, my siblings, but very good friends of mine and people that I love, like Megan Solar Glow. She's been on the show. Dahlia Burgon and her daughter, they'll be there. Diane Hennessy Powell, a friend of mine, and I'm a huge fan of hers. It goes multiple ways there. How I consider her a friend, but also I consider myself a fan, you know? So I'm just saying, these are people that you don't want to miss. And there's so many more with things like sound bowls, gong baths, DMT psychedelic experts, Qigong practitioners, remote viewing, mind sight with Dahlia, telepathy with her daughter. It goes on and on. You don't want to miss this. Hit me with the website, Alex.
Contact modalities, xpo.com.
Awesome. Oh, honorable mention, spoon bending, dowsing. I'm a big fan of dowsing. And pendulum. I'm also a big fan of pendulum. I like to use a pendulum for dowsing, right? They're interchangeable. But anyway, and then the last few things I want to talk about here, I know, it's just that, you know, we've got these things that we got to hit before we get on track, right? Check us out on Instagram to stay current on our events. We are going to be doing that giveaway that I mentioned, where you can have a chance to win. I think there's 3 winners, and you have a chance to win a spot at the VIP Skywatch. On our Instagram, we post our social media clips. We post all of our upcoming events, Skywatch schedule, conferences, and you know, everything that we are doing currently. It's the best place to stay live on Bledsoe Said So and what we've got going on. Check out our website, bledsoesaidso.com. It's a great way to be connected to everything in the Bledsoe Said So sphere. You can check out our merch. We have some new stuff coming pretty soon. I'm actually really excited about. It might even be out by the time this episode has aired. Did you just show that when you weren't on camera? Do you want to do it again?
Yeah, I can
on
do
camera?
it again. Yeah, I just wanted your blessing before I showed off some
Dude, it was your idea.
items here. Well, I know. It's just a teaser.
Yeah, so maybe if all things go according to plan, I know that a lot of our deliveries on certain products were messed up by the snowstorms here in North Carolina, but if everything gets here in a timely manner, we're going to hit launch pretty soon on the new design we have that I'm very, very excited about. So check out our website. You can see all of our links, all of our social media channels. It takes you to our merch. And then last but not least, and very importantly, our Patreon, which is a very, very profound way that you can support the show and even be a part of the show by accessing things like extra shows coming soon. Right now we have 1 extra show, but we have another one coming soon. We have our exclusive Discord community. We have, you can have your name in the credits. Through the different tiers, you get different levels of merch coupon access. And we have more tiers and more benefits coming soon that I am a little hesitant to talk about until they're out because I don't want to spoil the surprise. But we have some really cool benefits coming at our Patreon very soon. Wow, that was freaking wordy, dude. 8 minutes. I guess we're professional now. We're getting to that point where
got to keep everything rolling.
It's getting longer and longer and longer, you know? It's okay. Every program does this at a certain level. All right, Tibetan Book of the Dead. So I thought it would be like I'd talk about it a little bit. Here's the the key highlights, and then move on to the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And if I had time, I'd move on to something else. And the more I got into the Tibetan Book of the Dead, I realized that it was every bit as profound as the hype that I have been hearing over the years. And I've always been curious about Tibetan Buddhism, but not really having an idea of like where to begin and why it's so profound compared to like other versions of Buddhism. It's just so new to me and unfamiliar because I grew up from a very Western Christian lens without any sort of exposure to Eastern mystical practices until my adult life. And then looking at that is like literally trying to learn another language. It's all words and, Sanskrit or Hindi or whatever other language that I'm like, I don't even know what any of this stuff means, but there's something about it that fascinates me. Where do I begin? You know what I'm saying? It's like you need a Rosetta Stone to translate all of these things to, and then again, it's like there's thousands of years of history that you don't really learn about there, and the creation of these systems and how they offshoot into other systems. Long story short, a very good friend and a mentor of mine distilled it to me in a recent conversation. If you want to expand upon your rule of life and up your meditation practice, something that you should look into is Vajrayana Buddhism or Tantra protocols, or what is also known as Dzogchen, the rainbow light body, the light body, the same thing. I was like, okay, yeah, these are things that I've always thought were interesting, but that narrows my focus a bit. So I started diving into rabbit holes after that conversation last week. And it took me down the path to Shaivism, which I'm not going to at length talk about today. I want to do a whole other episode about that and Tantra, and more specifically expand upon Tantra. But what I found very curious was this notion that there is a connection between Shaivic Hinduism, which is basically Shiva as the supreme being. So Shaivic Hinduism and Tibetan Buddhism all being systems of Tantric philosophy, either Tantric yoga, as is discussed in Hinduism, or Tantric Buddhism, right? So I'm like, Tantra, what the heck is this Tantra? So I've had a limited, like many in the past, I used to think that Tantra was just a sex thing, right? Even me, I'm guilty of that. Like earlier in the show, I've made jokes about Tantra for shock value, because back then I was all about shock value. But I've made jokes about Tantra and tried to, throw that out there. But now I understand that that's not the complete picture, that the sexual art of Tantra does exist, but it's actually a pretty small contained portion compared to the whole system and philosophy. And then it even gets into the creation of like the right and the left hand paths of Tantric yoga and Buddhism. And it's like, oh my God. And it's just this, I started to notice this is getting more and more complex as I was investigating this over the last week. So let's narrow it back to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, right? So there's a thread that we've been following on the show very intentionally. Alex and I have a hidden council where we discuss things and we more or less ponder about where we should go next.
Some people call them meetings.
It's a directory. You could think about like a hidden directory. No, I'm just saying. To be clear, we talk about, okay, so this is going somewhere. Where's this going to go? And in my head, I'm like, all right, well, for example, I told you guys bluntly, I want to do the egregore thought form episode so that I can expand on that one into the way of light. So we talk about thoughts and how the universe is, a psychic model, or the panpsychic model. I went out of my way to really impress upon the viewer. I've talked about emanation theology several episodes back, right? So I've been pulling this thread from one episode to the next very intentionally. So why does the Tibetan Book of the Dead have anything to do with that, right? With egregores, with thought forms, with the Toltec or the Templar Knights or Rosicrucians, or any of those sort of Western alchemical traditions. Rumor has it, that rumor being purported by members of the Theosophical tradition, namely Helena Blavatsky. And I want to give a disclaimer, because Helena Blavatsky is a very polarizing figure, and I completely understand and agree, and I don't quite much like her. But that doesn't mean that everything she said is wrong. I think some stuff she said, I'm like, I don't agree with that. But in general, a lot of her material is not created, and she's just doing work synthesizing older material, right? A lot of the stuff she didn't create. So it's not right or accurate to say that everything she said is wrong. But there's a lot of stuff I'm like, I don't really know if I agree with that. But, to get to the point, according to that tradition, Tibet was the first, if you think of it, like, for example, if I was to say right now, the spirit of America is still alive today, right? You would think like freaking bald eagle, fireworks, 4th of July, guns in the air, the Civil War, the Pledge of Allegiance, marching. When I say the spirit of America, you know what I mean. You have a notion in your brain that there is more or less some sort of cultural entity of this land. Well, okay, so the spirit of Atlantis, so to speak, after the fall, according to the tradition of theosophy, moved to Tibet a long time ago. They say it as like Shangri-La or Shambhala or whatever. And then after so many years of it being spiritually, Tibet being the center of the survival of Atlantean wisdom, at some point after that, it moved to Egypt. That's a theory. I didn't make that up. I'm just saying that it's been suggested that the spirit of Atlantis at one point or another migrated after the fall into Tibet, which is why there's so much profound wisdom and practicality to the Tibetan Buddhist system, if that makes sense. And the deeper you pull this thread, you begin to realize that the philosophy and the cosmology of Tibetan Buddhism is very similar to everything we've been discussing, like the alchemical model of reality, just the whole Western esoteric model, that there really is a synthesis between the two. And that reality is basically many different layers of thought. That reality is empty nothingness that exists within the mind, and that the different layers of being are separated by bardos, right? Bardos. What are bardos? I actually wrote the definition down because a lot of these terms may seem foreign, right? They did to me. So I'm like, okay, if they do to me, they might to somebody else. So a bardo is a key concept in Tibetan Buddhism, meaning intermediate state, gap, transition, in between, or liminal state. It refers to any transitional phase or interval between two states of existence where things are neither fully one thing nor the other. A period of potential instability, opportunity, transformation.
So mind awake, body asleep would be a bardo?
Yeah,
In
yeah,
between-
no, yes.
From wake to sleep.
Yes.
That in-between period.
Yes, that exactly right. Transitional gaps where the familiar dissolves, creating groundlessness and heightened potential. Karma, habitual patterns, and mindfulness determine the outcome. There are 3 bardos of the living, and then 3 bardos of the dead. So there's 6 total, comprising all of reality. We'll go into those, right? The most interesting part to me that really jumped out about this was in death, when you move through those 3 bardos, at every level. So the Tibetan Book of the Dead it's an actual text that, and it's still used today. Not only did it have the, this might be wrong to say, but like the cosmological model of death, right? Like the actual process of passing into death. But it's a funerary text in the sense that as someone is dying, Tibetan monks would read it to them to assist them in passing into the bardo, into that first bardo of death. And if you get there after death or you wait until after death, then the belief is that there are 4 days that the consciousness is still in this state where you're around the body. So what's the word? Like a wise or a seasoned monk would do is they would take this text and they would get close to the ear and they would crouch down and they would recite the various prayers and mantras into the ear of the actual corpse so that the consciousness could hear it and be guided in the afterlife to where they need to go. So they're the first three Bardos. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Before I get into that, I want to talk about so let me back it up just a little bit. I don't want to miss anything because I put a lot of detail down here, right? Vajrayana or Tantric Buddhism, also known as Tibetan Buddhism, major branch of Mahayana Buddhism that developed in Tibet, incorporating elements from Indian Tantra. We already discussed that a little bit. And earlier Buddhist schools and local Bon traditions. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe, I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Tantra refers to the esoteric traditions within Hinduism and Buddhism that emerged around the 5th to 7th century CE in India, emphasizing rapid paths to enlightenment through ritual, symbol, transformative practices. Here we go. This is what I wanted to get to. At the core of Tantra and Tibetan Buddhism are several interconnected principles that guide practitioners toward enlightenment. So, emptiness. All phenomena lack inherent existence, or one could say this is Maya, this is illusion, right? And are interdependent. Realizing this emptiness cuts through the root of suffering, revealing the illusory nation of separation between self and other. We are not separate, right? And this opens up a whole lot of implications, like, the way of light, the Christ-like model, right? Because we are not separate. We are one. And that is an illusion that we're separate. So we cannot act in illusion. We have to act with wisdom, compassion, and kindness. This non-dual view affirms that reality is beyond opposites, where individual and cosmic selves are one. Buddha nature is inherent in every sentient being, and you possess the innate potential for full enlightenment, described as the primordial radiant consciousness inseparable from all of the Buddhas. This is often linked to the clear light mind, which we will discuss in a bit, the subtlest mental continuum that serves as the basis for transformation. Tantra views this as the source of all teachings, emphasizing the refinement of body, speech, and mind into their pure enlightened forms. The three kayas, the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya. And then the unity of wisdom and compassion. Enlightenment arises from uniting passive wisdom or voidness, right? So that's the feminine, with upaya, active compassion or skillful means. That's the masculine. For the unification of those two opposite forces, the wisdom, the passive principle, right? The experience, and then the active, skillful use of wisdom, kindness, compassion, love towards others brings enlightenment. This is symbolized in tantric art and practice by the union of the male and female deities Yab and Yum, representing the integration of opposites to achieve great bliss. The tradition venerates feminine energies such as through the Dakinis or the spiritual beings and the divine Shakti that animates all reality. And I'm not going to expand too much on the Shakti here because I want to do that further episode talking about Tantra in greater detail, about Shaivism being basically Shiva being known as the supreme God, the supreme mind, right? And then Shakti being the first manifest form that animates the living, breathing world. Sound familiar? Shakti is the feminine, by the way. Karma is foundational, influencing rebirth and suffering in samsara. Tantra teaches that ordinary experiences, including desires and emotions, can be transformed into paths for spiritual growth rather than suppressed. This left-hand path uses intense methods to awaken energies. And see, the problem there is as the left-hand and the right-hand path is understood in Western esoteric tradition, it's basically the same, and it actually comes from Tantra. It's the first ever mention of this, probably in human history, where it's understood that the right-hand path is through enlightenment. It's through kindness, achieving bliss, serenity, and the awakening of the psychic faculties through the way of light, right? And then the left-hand path is through things that are antinomian, which is a very bad thing. It means that you're seeking to get there quicker by breaking taboos. So that's where you get into explicit sexual stuff or, eating people or terrible things like that. Blood magic, all that dark stuff. That's the left-hand path. And you see a lot of Tantra, and just in general, magic and religious paths being, what's the word? I don't want to say overshadowed, but like being represented by this. Like people think magic, they think, they're sacrificing chickens. They're doing this horrible stuff. That does happen, but that's not all of it. That's one path. That's the left-hand path. And then you have the right-hand path, which is more like what we talk about on this show, what Jesus was talking about, what the Rosicrucians are talking about, and the Templars, and the Toltecs we're talking about, right? We're talking about, and the Tibetan monks. We're talking about the right-hand path, which is like the Christ-like path or the Buddha path. It's being kind. It's being of light, right? Just wanted to make that clear that we're distinguishing from the left-hand path. And I don't fuck with it. So anyway, Tantra employs mantra, sacred sounds, mudras, mandalas, deity visualizations to invoke cosmic forces, all to achieve enlightenment in the quickest path. It's the unfolding of that Buddha within, right? This is passed orally from master to student, emphasizing initiation and secrecy, and the goal is to recognize the divine in the body and in everyday life. Now we're going to start getting into some weird stuff here. Transcending delusions through direct experience. In Tibetan Buddhism, the universe is viewed as a manifestation of enlightened mind rather than a separate material realm. The cosmos is seen as animated by the divine energies, with all things interconnected and arising from emptiness. Mandalas represent this as sacred diagrams of the universe where the practitioner's body mirrors the cosmic structure. So we have as above, so below, right? We have the notion here that the actual body is a microcosm of the universe as a whole, which is to be separate from, I can't remember the name of the Hindu tradition, because just like in Buddhism, there's like multiple different types of Buddhism. There's Mahayana, there's Vajrayana, and then there's Theravada, and then even in Christianity, there's Catholicism, there's Pentecostal, there's all these different sects that believe different things. But in one of the most popular forms of Hinduism, they've got it all wrong. They're like, you have to completely reject the body and the physical. It's bad, it's the spirit world that's the only real thing. And then in Shaivism, or the equivalent being Vajrayana Tibetan Buddhism, they say, no, the body's not bad. It's a part of this whole story, that the body is divine, and it's actually a reflection of the divine, that it's the microcosm of the supreme being and the universe, right? So you're working with a lot of subtle body energy in Tantra, doing meditations to transmute the energies of the subtle body, as opposed to like rejecting the flesh and trying to be a renunciate and just, like empty your mind. There's benefit to that, but this isn't like that. It's more so like, to me, it's more real. The body's not evil. It's created in the image of the divine. It's the microcosm of the supreme.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I've begun to think of more and more kind of in the ego, but begun to think of the body and the ego, which are kind of the two main things we have going on here, as tools. And kind of reframing them, at least in my mind, as tools, kind of reframes how they should be treated. Like, and I'm kind of, I kind of disagree with the people who are like, you need to remove ego. No, you need to realize it as a tool to use in this reality.
Yeah.
Where you have to refine it, as in understand and going back to last episode, right? The constant self-reflection, understanding and separating ego, refining it as a tool and letting it work for you for what it was created to do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Same thing with the body, but like obviously treat your body right. It's a tool.
Yeah, and same with the ego, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too in the death cycle, according to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But yeah, it's not like if you destroyed the ego, and I've thought that at one, but I think this is a very nuanced subject.
Yeah, I also just don't want to fault anybody if that's because like in reflection here, right? We both were team get rid of the ego. I don't want to speak for you. I was. And along my path, this is where I'm at now. I'm not saying I'm better off or worse off or whatever, but it's just it's part of what I've learned and kind of adopted as along this journey.
Yeah. I mean, the ego is something that it's like, it has to be reduced. The part, okay, let me refine the thoughts that are swirling around in my head to say what I actually mean, right? When unchecked, the ego will keep you in delusion. That it is a part of a system designed to, I think, filter higher truths and inner realizations and keep you in false cycles. Or as we talk about here, and we're going to discuss soon, samsara, which is the infinite cycle of birth and death. According to this system, it's like you're just in an endless cycle of birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, and even after death, you're in cycles in the death worlds. And then if you can break the cycle here, you can break the cycle there. The whole point of it, how do you escape samsara? How do you achieve nirvana? Or I think they call it moksha as well, is you realize your true nature, which is you are pure mind. You're pure being of divine, that you are just here in the illusory world and that you are infinite pure bliss. You realize that the mind is illusory, that everything is illusory. And it's even deeper than that, right? So when you die, you go through the different layers of Bardo. Like I said, in life, there's 3. There's the place, but from when you're born and you take your first breath until death. That's the first liminal space. That's the first Bardo, the illusion, right? The life that you live while you're awake. That's the first illusion. The second one is when you dream. And they get into practices like dream yoga and learning to be awake and aware in the dreams. Like
sounds
the
like
Egyptians.
some yoga I'd be all about.
Yeah.
I'm probably more flexible in my dream.
Well, it doesn't have to be yoga. The point is, I mean, the Gnostics practice this. The Egyptians practice this. It's all about lucid dreaming. It's all about learning to be awake in your dreams, right? Because even in your dreams, you can awaken. And then the third one, I think, is in the deep meditative state, which you were talking about, mind awake, body asleep. That there's the third Bardo in the living world, which is when you achieve certain higher states of consciousness, you begin to realize that the world is illusory. And then when you pass into death, there's 3 more Bardos.
So just to simplify it for my small mind, alive, 1, awake while asleep, 2, asleep while awake, 3.
I guess that's one way you could say it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a way of looking at it. And the whole point of this, the whole thing is like, wake up. The reason that the monks would, like, if someone died and they would come and they would bring the Tibetan Book of the Dead, obviously to them it's just the Book of the Dead. It's not called the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But they would bring the Book of the Dead, and I think they even call it something else, right? But and they would read it and they would flip through like, oh shit, there's fluid leaking out of his ears. He's at this stage. You know, seriously, it goes into all that. Like, down to when he takes his last breath. This is what he's seeing in his mind's eye. And there's different prayers that are to be read at the different stages, because at each of those stages, down to when you take your last breath and then your consciousness leaves the physical body, you go into that, you stay around the body for a while. And that's commonly believed in other systems too. Like they say, 3 days after death, I felt their presence, stuff like that, right? But in this system, I think it's 4 days, it said, that the body is, the consciousness is near the body. And that it's there, that even there, it's able to awaken, it being your consciousness, that it's able to awaken, it's able to renounce the illusion. And then when you pass through into the next Bardo, well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but to summarize, it's like you enter into the pure state of the clear light of the mind. It's like a cloudless sky. And even there, at each of these Bardos, it's like a test. Even in death, it's like a test, right? And it's like, what will you believe? Because now you're in the astral world. They say the Bardo, but I'm a Western guy, right? So you're in the astral world. So it's like you're not so bound to the laws of the physical universe. So you can think and you'll be there. You can pass through walls. You can phase through. You can check on everybody that's near your body, right? But for example, what they would do is if there was people in the room crying when you died, a serious monk, they would remove them. Because they know that when your consciousness has left the body, that it might be very distressed and tempted by illusion. If, like, for example, your mom is crying over your corpse, you might mess with your head, your astral head. Be like, oh God, I can't process it. You know what I'm saying? And the whole point was to help assist you through the illusion so that you wake up and you don't have to reincarnate. So here in a bit, we'll go into those layers of Bardos and what it's like. But
so can I ask like a cultural question kind of here? Is this for everybody? What I'm talking about is when the monk would, and I don't know if you know the answer, but when the monk showed up to do this ritual, is this reserved for people who were on the path? Is this reserved for only monks? Is this for everybody?
good question.
Yeah.
That I don't know the answer to.
Okay. I'll look it up.
Yeah, and let me know what you find. I would assume it's for everybody, but circumstantially it doesn't always happen, right? It's not like it's for, kings or something. This is the process. And again, it's like maybe some people don't believe in this process. Maybe this was a loved one of this guru or this monk, and they want to personally assist them. I don't know, Also, people die in battle or people have a heart attack and they're out in the field. This isn't always going to be possible.
I'm wondering if this is like the cultural equivalent of like requesting the priest to the hospital.
Yeah, for sure. But this is, it's the same concept.
Just an entirely culturally different view of dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's to help people pass through the void peacefully. All right. So, the universe is considered a manifestation of the enlightened mind. Oh, I think I already read this part, didn't I? The cosmos is seen as animating. Do you want to crack that door so my cat doesn't go crazy? Sorry if you guys hear Delilah going nuts. The universe is animated by divine energies, right? All things are interconnected, like the Force, like the Holy Spirit, like the Ruach. The reason I'm so excited about this is because there are very, very minute parallels between the Western esoteric wisdom traditions and this system. It's like they are cognates of each other. The cosmology is more or less the same. It's emanation theology. It's the panpsychic idealism. It's panentheism. It's the same. The cosmic trinity is there, right? They just have a different way and different words and vocabulary to describe things. But everything is seen as interconnected and arising from emptiness, or you could say 0 point, right? Science terminology. The mandalas represent the macrocosm and the microcosm. Texts like the Kalachakra Tantra detail the cosmology, the astrology, and the harmonization of the inner and the outer energies. So it's like you're trying to unite the macrocosm and the microcosm. You're trying to realize the God within. Completely awaken the faculties so that you can see through the illusion of the false world, the false realm, right? And be liberated. It's all about achieving liberation through enlightenment. What is enlightenment? Well, you see through the illusion. What is the illusion? The physical world. The real world is permanent. It's eternal. It's infinite. You are immortal. You never truly die. Death is just passage into a new world. You're always in a liminal state of evolving until you wake up and realize you are immortal and you are one with all of the universe, right? There are 6 realms of existence in this model, which I find interesting how they list this. Gods, demigods, humans, animals, the hungry ghosts. At the beginning of the episode, I made a joke about the hungry ghosts and hell beings driven by karma. Nirvana is the realization that even these 6 realms of existence are projections of the mind. That at every level of the Bardo, and remember, that includes life. At every level of this cycle of samsara that you're in, life and death, life and death, life and death, it's all projecting from your mind like a hologram. And the way that you even navigate the state in death is things like demons and devils and horrifying images. Or if you were a good man and you had good karma, angelic, blissful, beautiful beings. They all project as aspects of your psyche to confront you. And you see things like a review of your life and the horrible things that you've done to other people project themselves to you as demons in the second layer of the Bardo. Or angels, like I said, it depends on your karma. So even this is designed to test you if you can see through the illusion. And obviously in that state, when you're being, bombarded with the faces of horrifying demons because, you robbed people or you were greedy or you were a glutton and you had an addiction to just eating and eating and eating or whatever vice it is that you dealt with in life, that reflects to you in the Bardo layer as an aspect of your psyche. And you have to recognize and not be afraid that it is just an illusion of the mind. And as you progress through these layers of Bardo, it gets more and more challenging. And the level of alertness and awareness and probability you have of achieving enlightenment, even in death, gets slimmer and slimmer and slimmer as you pass through the Bardos, to where eventually in that third layer, you start seeing the rotating images of parents mating, and you begin the selection process of birth into your new life, at which when you don't see through the illusion then even, you select the most favorable womb that you desire to be born in, and then your consciousness becomes fused with the physical body at the fertilization of the egg from the couple that you choose, whether it's human, whether it's animals, what have you. And then once you fail at each level, realizing that it's all an illusion from your mind, eventually you complete that third step, and then your consciousness is molded into a physical being and you're reborn. Yet again, failing to achieve enlightenment. But according to this, there's 6 realms you could be born in, and it's gods or Buddhas, it's humans, animals, demigods even, the hungry ghosts, or the hell beings, demons basically. And I think there's symbolism there that it's not literal that you know, maybe it is. Maybe you do incarnate in the spirit world as a hungry ghost, and they describe them as grotesque, like having narrow necks, tiny mouths, and they're starving and they have bloated bellies, but they can't eat. And they're constantly trying to eat food, but it passes through them because they have an astral body and it makes them suffer more and feel feelings of like heat and pain. And they're just like wailing and desperate for food. And they achieved that state because they were greedy. They caused suffering. They caused harm to other people. The hell beings is like being in a complete total state of torment, and that was said to be achieved and experienced by people who had extreme anger and violence and were just horrible to people. So again, I think that some of that is symbolic of the life you are reborn into based on your choices and your karma. I don't think it's that you'll literally be a demon. Will you be a demonic disembodied spirit? I don't know if that's what it's saying. It could be esoteric. That's all I'm getting at. It could be symbolism. A lot of it is symbolism. A lot of it is literal, like the Bardo stuff and what happens at each layer. And then a lot of it is symbolism, like seeing, you know, I think it was Yab and Yama or whatever in a tantric sexual position. Obviously, that's not literal. It's archetypal projections of the mind, because the whole point of this, all existence is the mind of the supreme being, and we're like in a holographic projection of that mind in a little cycle. And through our mind, we have to wake up to this and achieve enlightenment and escape the cycle. So it's all just different degrees of trying to see through the illusion in our minds. And at every level of death, passing through the layers of the Bardo, everything that you experience when your consciousness leaves the body is a projection of your mind. Everything that's good and everything that's bad. If you're good, it's good. If you were bad, it's bad. That's the complete like synthesis of it. And it's way more complex than that. And I find that very fascinating because that's pretty much exactly what the Monroe Institute teaches. Based on their many thousands of times of experience with communicating with the dead through various programs and channelings and out-of-body states, that it's essentially that, you know, when you die and you leave the physical, that where you believe you're going to go is where you're going to go. What you believe you're going to experience is what you're going to experience. That's pretty much exactly the same. And they have a whole program doing this, assisting people crossing over into another place. Because if, you know, a lot of people are trapped when they die and they become ghosts because they don't realize maybe they're dead, right? They're just waiting around. Where is everybody? They don't know what happened. So they're trapped. Because they don't know what happened, because they don't know they're dead, they don't have the capacity to decide where to go or what to do. So very interesting. I thought there was a fascinating parallel there between, you know, what they talk about, what they experience, and then, you know, what Tibetan Buddhism discusses. And then, you know, we'll find later in the Egyptian Book of the Dead that it's also pretty similar. But instead of it being projections of the mind in the form of illusions, they talk about it more as like mythological gods when you pass through the various planes of existence after death. So we talked about the six realms and the six incarnations of being. Nirvana is not an escape, but the realization that these realms are illusory projections of the mind. Deities, Buddhas, and wrathful figures embody cosmic forces aiding transformation. And for example, Vajrayana represents the all-knowing cosmic Buddha, central to many other parallel traditions. And then there are the three bodies of the Buddha. This is all the cosmological model of Tibetan Buddhism and Vajrayana, right? Or Tantra, you could say. The Dharmakaya, or the truth body, is the ultimate formless reality, like the Vajradhara, or the source of enlightenment. The Sambhogakaya, or the enjoyment body, manifests in the pure lands for advanced beings, and the Nirmanakaya, or the emanation body, appears in the world like the historical Buddhas, like Siddhartha. This is the Trikaya system that reflects the emphasis on the different levels of reality or emanations from subtle mind to, well, like spirit world, basically, or astral, to gross manifestations, meaning, the physical world. And now we're going to actually get into the Tibetan Book of the Dead, because that was all I was kind of talking about it, right? But I pretty much hit the most of it, so I'll see if I can move through this. But the big emphasis here, and I read the book today, right? The whole thing. And I took note. I was listening to it on audiobook. And what's interesting is I took note. It was like maybe 5 times in the actual text that by word, it basically says that if you were a practitioner of Tantra in your daily life, that the passage into the Bardo will be easier and more pleasant. That the practitioner of, it also said, I'm pretty sure it said Jogchen, which is light body, right? It's a form of meditation in Tibetan Buddhism or Vajrayana or Tantra. Basically, they said that if you were a practitioner of this, that you would have an easier death, that you would be more adept at the faculties of the mind in that state to be able to awaken to the illusion.
Because, again, I'm going to keep on this track of oversimplifying all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because by practicing this, you're essentially trying to get to a Bardo state.
Yes, exactly.
Therefore, you spend more time there. Therefore, you're more
skilled
in that state. It's
exactly.
It's not as shocking to you. It's not as
well, no, you just have experience.
Geez,
you have experience.
Today. Yeah.
That's exactly it.
But it's oversimplifying prayer, meditation, Monroe meditation.
Yeah,
this is all aiming to spend time in these states is what it's saying.
Yes.
Do you think it's literally?
No, that's what it's saying.
Yeah. Cool.
It's saying that to the one who walks this path in life, death will be easier because you'll be adept. You'll be able to
navigate the mind.
Navigate the mind, yes, and the worlds of the mind. Exactly. That's exactly right. That being in this state in life prepares you for the next life. I'm telling you. That's why I texted you today. I was like, there's a connection here, man.
Right? 5 minutes a day for the rest of your life, it amounts to quite a few hours.
Yeah, true. Yeah. But that's crazy. You could see why I texted you today.
Yeah.
I was like, dang, dude, we are on a thread here.
A generational tear.
Yeah.
Through.
A rift in the void.
I'm very proud of our last few episodes.
Yeah,
well,
man.
More than a few, but you get what I'm saying.
So that is integral to the whole thing, that the point is the one who doesn't practice anything, like especially, dare I say, and we're not even talking about like a horrible, horrible person who has bad karma. Forget the karma. Just like what is your belief? What is your practice? For those who don't do anything to better themselves and to work on this path, they have it very difficult in the next life because they don't have the faculties to notice the illusions of the mind, which presents itself as scary imagery, right? Sometimes. And that sounds to me like an anxious thought on the day-to-day basis, Like think about the skill of meditation and prayer. Because you could say that they're the same thing if you use it correctly, Think about how that can help with anxiety. You see what I'm saying? That there's a real benefit to implementing this practice.
Oh, yeah. I think of it like, again, I feel like I'm the king of analogies here, but if someone told you, because the Winter Olympics are on, and what I find super fascinating is the long jump, like the ski long jump where they fly through the air like a squirrel.
Yeah, it's cool.
But imagine if someone came to you and was like, you are going to do this in and whatever time frame is, right? Like this is going to happen. Wouldn't you like want to practice?
Yeah.
Because I've never done that. And I don't really want to go flying off that 100-foot jump without ever doing it before.
Right.
It'd
scare me to death.
A little basically like there's a timer on all of us. What, don't you kind of want to practice?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And
maybe I just want to be good at everything.
No, that's logically true. But so many people experience existential dread and they don't know what to believe. And they think when they die, they go to nothing. Or they think if they just believe a certain way, they go to heaven or hell. And it's not that simple. It's really not.
I mean, I've been in the camp of nothing for a long time, so I don't mind pulling that thread from experience.
Yeah. I just, this is kind of like the greatest mystery in all of our existence. Like, what happens when we die? I don't know. Never thought about it. Really? You know what I mean? Like, I think about it all the time.
That's right. And I'm sitting here wondering if there's something wrong with me because I'm thinking about it all the time.
Yeah, it's like, what's going to happen? Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to go somewhere.
Right.
Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
No, but to be serious, like, I just think there's a lot of people that don't think about it and it scares them and they don't want to think about it.
Uh-huh.
So why would they think, oh, I'm not going to prepare for that? That's morbid. No, I think it's practical. And it's not about that. It's not about that. It's about when you realize the truth that every level of existence is illusion, that you're always in a liminal state, being rendered like a hologram in the present, whether you're in biological life or you're in spiritual life. You're in a liminal state of transition to the next thing, and you're always progressing upwards on this evolutionary path of the mind. And then eventually you hit a certain level of realization where you don't need to be in this form anymore, that you become transcendent, that you return to that immortal state. Whether it's, you have to reincarnate again because, you were a thief in this life. So now next time you got to come back, maybe you got to be robbed. Maybe, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's simplifying it, but it's cycles of experiencing things from many different perspectives, feeling every emotion on the spectrum, being dark, being light. You come back here and you experience everything till eventually you realize, all right, it's time to go home. I don't need this experience anymore. I've learned everything that I could learn from this place. And then you die and you go into and then it's like, well, where do I go from here? Do I need to go back? I haven't seen through the greed of that life. That's why it's like you become a hungry ghost. If you were greedy in this life and then you die and, in that transitional state, the Bardos it's like purgatory basically, right? That's why I was like, this is going to be a parallel to what you wanted to talk about.
Right.
Because it's like you're in this purgatory liminal state of these 3 layers of Bardo before you ultimately launch off into immortal existence, or it's like you keep failing the tests and then, you come back.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, even in death, it's like we have the chance to awaken, right? So I'm going in circles now. Let me get back on it.
Right. I think that's where the practice comes in, because if you have another chance in death to reach the goal, then becoming familiar. But if becoming familiar in that Bardo space of death also benefits your life greatly now, it's kind of like a win-win in my mind. If it could ease some of that anxiety, I'm just saying prayer and meditation essentially benefiting one's daily life.
Yeah, I mean, it benefits you now, it benefits you then. Period. Yeah. It benefits you always.
Right.
To be in contemplation.
I also think there's a thread here of the power of your mind, going back to good thoughts, good words, good deeds. You could even go into manifestation a little bit, because if what you're believing at the time of death or throughout your entire life, because, I'm a big kind of believer in muscle memory, right? Like when that moment of stress hits, we're going to go to muscle memory. So even if you're believing one thing in death and and you're maybe fortunate or unfortunate enough to know that you are dying, you are probably going to revert back to what you truly believe, not what you're trying to tell yourself you believe. And so, that plays all into it, right? In the experience you'll have after death, according to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But what I'm saying is your mind has the power also to influence your daily life, know, and
that's right.
Same tools, prayer and meditation, as manifesting tools for life and death. It seems like.
Yeah.
As above, so below. I mean, we're kind of like, you get so deep, you get back to the top.
Yeah, but you can see why I was texting you today. Like, wow, this is really...
It's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm enjoying this one. I'm intrigued.
Alex showed up and I was like, I think I changed the episode today. It's just going to be about this. We discussed it was going to be about something else. And then, 3 or 4 hours in, I realized this is actually where we were supposed to be, talking about this stuff.
Yeah. Ryan says, let me cook. I stand back. You know what I'm saying?
Well, another key thing in this whole system, and this is discussed in the Book of the Dead too, I think that this is a very important function of reality. And you were talking about the ego earlier, and I was waiting until we got to this part in my notes. If you recall, a few weeks ago, we talked a little bit more about Rudolf Steiner. And I read passages from The Way of Initiation, right? Something that I find interesting that jumps out in many different systems is the notion that you face your inner demons. And they are projections of, in Eastern terms, we say karma, right? But they're, or in the West, we would say probably psyche, that they're manifestations of your karma and your psyche. So it says when you die, when you go to that second level of the Bardo, demons jump out at you. And even then, it just comes from your mind. They're not real demons trying to eat your soul or whatever. That they're coming from you, and it's an illusion from that place of, am I going to wake up? Am I going to pass the illusion? And that's so fascinating because if you've done anything like DMT or very heavy mushroom dose, what happens? Your ego completely breaks down because you become overwhelmed with thoughts, feelings, images that are so powerful and so intense that it completely just basically destroys your ego. And that's not a bad thing. It's basically, it's humbling your consciousness. It's forcing you to address the aspects of your psyche and your soul that are challenging you, that are controlling you even, that you have to overcome. And dare I say this, okay? We know I don't like Aleister Crowley, but even he says a similar thing. He talks about an entity, I think he calls it Kuranzan, that you hit a certain point where it challenges you. Steiner talks about this. It's experienced in DMT. They talk about this. There's somewhere, in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, that when you die, it's like you face demons, basically Egyptian myth demons, that are serving as guardians of the celestial heavenly realms to prevent the unworthy from passing into those places. And even in the Egyptian system, we'll talk more about this later, but it was so focused on the heart. They believed that your consciousness was not in your brain, but it was in your heart. And they would take this metal thing and they would put it in a fire and they would heat it up, and then they would put it up your nose and they would melt and liquefy your brain and extract it from your nose, and they would throw it in the trash, and they would preserve the heart in the body. They would mummify you with the heart because they believed so profoundly in the magic of the heart and that it is the seat of your soul and your consciousness. And they had all kinds of different rituals and initiation practices and spells And in the Egyptian system, it's known as Heka, which is word magic. That's where the word hex comes from, right? The idea of a curse or a spell with your mouth. But they had systems to prepare your soul or your, I believe it's called the ka, to turn into an ak, which is a mortal celestial soul that would pass into the heavenly realms and become a star upon death. Or another way that they would interpret it is your heart is weighed against an ostrich feather in the hall of Ma'at. And if it's as light as the feather, then you would pass on to the paradise in the field of reeds. But it was a similar system to where when you die, you're challenged by these scary, hellish demons. And it's to confront you from the sins that you lived in your past life. And then it starts over again. You come back. There's the reincarnation element. So I think and then the other thing I wanted to say was the Gnostics. The Gnostics talk about this many different times. And there's a really cool text called Zostrianos, which I intend to eventually do an episode on, or at least discuss in part. And in Zostrianos, he ascends through the layers of reality, seeking to communicate with the God above God, the true God. And I find Zostrianos extremely fascinating because he is he's either like a descendant of a Zoroastrian priest or he's a descendant of Zoroaster. It's something like that. But I find it really cool because it's another fascinating historical connection between the Persian Magi and Jesus Christ and the Christian system. If you consider Gnosticism part of the Christian system, it's part of the body of, texts about Jesus Christ. To me, it's just as Christian as the Bible. But anyway, so I find that very fascinating, right? That connection with Zostrianos, the Zoroastrian Persian Magi, and Jesus. There was some sort of connection with the Magi and the Essenes, which we know Jesus was an Essene. He was a Nazarene, which means he was an Essene, right? He wasn't born in Nazareth. Allegedly, he was born in Bethlehem. But he was a Nazarene because the Nazarenes were Essenes, right? Anyway, that's a side topic. In the text known as Zostrianos, it describes that he goes on a heavenly ascent through the realms. And in various parts, there's like a guardian of the threshold that seeks to prevent you from passing through to the next level of reality. And the Gnostics, in multiple texts, they talk about having to like hide from these archonic forces and like bypass them to ascend through the heavenly realms. So there's some sort of thread here across all these different systems where there's like this archonic or demonic imagery, whether it's an illusion of your mind, maybe they have it right, whether it's some force, I don't know, some external force, I don't know. But there's some sort of importance to the way you live your life karmically and how you treat others and how you project your thoughts into the world and even the thoughts that you experience inside. There's an importance with all of that, and then how you experience the spirit world. They are one. They cannot be separated. Your actions in the physical world have a consequence in the spiritual. Right? That's undeniable. Nihilism, hedonism, any sort of philosophy that doesn't encourage you in some way to be a better person, they're evil. They're illusion. They're false. They're destroying you. They are convincing you to do harm to the immortal part of your being. And in the long run, in the, however many thousands or millions of years it takes, you'll eventually figure it out. So in the very high level non-human perspective, like, you'll be fine. But really, I mean, that's like, do you want to experience the hard way, which is, trial and error and just stumbling through the dark and, being miserable in each incarnation and suffering.
I mean, not even worse than trial and error, like blind trial and error.
Yeah. You'll be fine. You got F's in all your classes. You'll be okay. You just won't get admitted to college. You won't be admitted to higher learning. I'm sorry. That's a stupid metaphor. I'm not a big fan of college, and I went. Anyway, so the demonic spirit thing I think is really fascinating, how there's some sort of barrier. And again, like they're not all demonic. They just appear that way to scare you. And then like in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it's like, hey, it's all an illusion of your mind and it's a test. And if you realize that, it changes and you become enlightened. And even in that state, you can become enlightened. It's okay. You're going to be scared by scary demons. Don't let it fool you, basically. So we talked about the 6 Bardos. I'm going to kind of blow through this part, but we have birth to death, everyday waking existence, current life, your habitual patterns, your opportunities for practice, meditation, subtle transition into the different thoughts and emotional states. It's the most important Bardo for spiritual training. You have the Bardo of dreams, the state between falling asleep and waking up. Dreams are seen as illusory projections of the mind. Obviously, that's like nobody's disputing that. And you have an opportunity here to even become awake in your dreams. Samadhi, right? Or the Bardo of meditation. This is the state that you enter during deep meditation when the ordinary conceptual mind dissolves and then pure awareness can shine through. So there's, again, we already went on and on about that. That was pretty obvious. There's the Bardo of dying, which is the Chikai Bardo, step 1. That's the first layer of Bardo after death. And it's the actual process of death itself. It's when you're dying and you're passing from the physical body into the afterlife. Down to the dissolution of your consciousness into the clear light and the moment that you take your final breath and your heart stops beating. This is the greatest. So according to the after death Bardos, this is like the most potential for liberation and enlightenment can be achieved in this stage. Somebody who spent their whole life being a monk, they would die and they would get to this stage and they would say, oh, I'm dead. All right, time to move on. And they would be fine. Somebody whose consciousness is riddled with guilt and fear and negativity, they would struggle here just like they struggled everywhere else in life because they were always miserable and they would struggle through the next few phases and they could, in theory, figure it out, but they'd probably have to come back. The Bardo layer 2 after death of Dharmata, the luminous visionary phase after death, where the peaceful and wrathful deities, which are the projections of one's own mind, appear. And the whole point of this is to recognize them as illusion, right? That they're parts of you. It's your karma and your psyche, or as they would say, your skandhas, which is the bundles of being that constitute your being and personality, right? And then there's the Bardo of becoming, or the Sidpa Bardo. And this is the one, that final phase where you basically choose the womb and you're reborn. So the first Bardo after death is pretty cool because it talks about, this is when the monk would be reading the passages and he'd be saying in your ear. And there's like dozens of prayers that they would choose based on a certain condition. And they're reading them to you so that your consciousness won't be scared and confused on the passage of death. And that maybe you would hear this and you would realize, oh, I'm dying. Okay, I have to wake up. I can't be tricked by the illusion. But when you pass into this first Bardo, you enter in a place that's like a cloudless, clear blue sky. And it's serene and it's peaceful and it's just like beautiful light. It's the luminosity and the emptiness of the mind. You enter into the clear void of the mind, which is this peaceful bliss and stillness. And here, either you're like, okay, I'm dead, this is it. Or you're like, what's happening? What's happening? And if you don't wake up, then you move to the next one, right? What's the next one? This is where stuff starts getting scary. It's where they basically the demons, like I've talked about over and over, and the heavenly beings, if you were good, they start popping out at you. And this is where you're freed from your physical form at the point where the consciousness has fully left the body. So they have levels of time, like days, but it's subjective because they're in days spent in the Bardo, like in the astral world. So obviously they're not real Earth days. So they say it's like X number of days spent in this state, and you could basically perceive yourself as a luminous thought form, and wherever you think you go. And the more negative your karma, the more wrathful and terrifying the entities. And some of them even can look like, some of the images that were described in the Book of the Dead were kind of scary. It was like, I don't even know how to say it, dude. Like flesh, like chainsaw massacre stuff. You know what I mean? Like if you were a really bad person, like you're going to be tormented from your own psyche by, horrifying visions. Things just like pots of blood, and just like there were some really dark visions, and there's peaceful ones too, of angels and these godly. There's Amitabha, which is this. We've talked about Amitabha really briefly one time on the show before, but it's like one of the highest Buddhas: love, compassion. So really, it just depends how you were in life. It can appear as sounds and a great thundering clouds, and it's all illusion, and the point of all of it is for you to recognize that. And then there's that final version. I kind of covered a lot of this before I got here in my notes, so I'm just kind of wrapping it up now. But the final version is, the one where you pick your life, and you see like vignettes. So what's really interesting about this is based on what you see is based on your karma and where you're like destined to go into the next life, according to this system. Do I think this is literally true? No, I think that it's probably really close. And the point is, we reincarnate. How could we know, unless we've died and come back with perfect memory, exactly how it goes, right? But it's interesting. And they say that you see like rotating images of, it's either humans literally copulating, or it's animals, or it's archetypal imagery of the masculine and feminine deity, or it's like devils. And depending on what you see and are attracted to is the realm you'll be born in, whether it's the human realm, the demon realm, the God realm. You know what I'm saying? Like what you see is where you're going to go, but you're not aware of that in the moment. You're in an illusion. You're dead. You're like, if you're at this point, you're still under the illusion. You're like kind of hypnotized, basically. I forgot to mention that in the second realm, that it's the one, it's like you begin to see a smoke. It's like a smoke that appears. I thought this was interesting too. And if you see like a white radiant smoke, you have a good karma and you're going to move into a positive destination. But if you see this like dark, scary, fuzzy smoke, you move into like a negative dimension. But I think I've hit it pretty hard. That about wraps it up, man. I'm like, I didn't expect to go that long, but what'd you think?
Oh, great job. I really enjoyed listening.
Yeah, I mean, eventually I'd like to do one on the Book of the Dead too, because the Egyptian Book of the Dead, obviously.
Yeah, let's do it.
And maybe not necessarily the very next episode, but I want to circle back and come like within the next few weeks back to that one. And then maybe we could do like Divine Comedy. We've been talking about that for years anyway. That could be cool. And I've never actually fully read it, so that'll give me the opportunity. Cool. All right. Well, we love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope it wasn't too off the wall. And, we appreciate you. We couldn't do it without you guys. And we'll see you next week.